love about Marina, Marina and I go way back. So we graduated from the same school in Queens at St. John's University. And we met, I think, through Dr. Aria, who was our pharmacy professor. And her and I have just been following each other along the journey. And I consider her a friend and somebody who I deeply admire, because I honestly, like, I couldn't even think of having this summit without you, to be honest, because I feel like you're a healer. You're such a natural healer. You're somebody that I deeply admire for how much knowledge you know. Like, if you've ever talked to Marina, she just knows everything about herbs, and she's interested in all different types of healing modalities. I always look on her Instagram. I'm like, can I just come over to your house and you can cook for me? Because she's always developing these concoctions and these beautiful dishes. And I'm like, can I just come live at your house right now? So I've had the privilege and the honor of being there with you and seeing you grow and transform. And so I'm celebrating you, and I'm so glad that you're here with me. I can't see having a healing summit without you. So.
Oh, thank you so much for those words, Christina. They really mean so much to me. As you know, you've been my unofficial and official mentor at points throughout this journey. So I'm super honored to be here with you today. And I know I'm the only thing standing between people's lunches is my talk, right?
So no, you're fine. My husband hasn't gotten here with my salad yet, so like, go get me a salad, please.
Yeah, so hopefully I'm gonna make this interactive and fun, and I'm gonna start actually by sharing a little presentation that I put together. Yeah. And so we'll get that started now. All right, you see my desktop, right?
Yes, it worked. Yep.
All right, perfect. So I'm gonna do the presenter view, present. Oops, there we go. Okay, so my topic today is going to be on self-care, which is following the theme, right, of this whole thing. If you don't take care of yourself, then you really can't serve others. And if you also haven't done, the positive things, the negative things, all the work that comes with being an entrepreneur yourself, it's, really difficult to guide somebody else through that journey. So I'm actually going to be talking about how we can heal the mind and the body together, because they're not separate. So for me, that comes with, this is my bio, so objectives. We're really going to be talking about, well, we separate mental health, we talk about anxiety and overwhelm, right? But really, if we take care of our body, we are taking care of our mind, and vice versa. So this is why herbalism has become such a big presence, a huge tool in my toolbox that I utilize and guide others towards utilizing and sharing and enjoying all the benefits, because it could just be connecting us with our physical body, which is often a feminine concept, which is also something we talk about a lot too. So it's not that we have to go into the mind and find spiritual enlightenment and meditation. That can happen for some people, right? And it is mostly like, you think about these enlightened men and Buddhas and like people reaching all these things, and also at times, fasting and depriving ourselves of bodily pleasures as well, to kind of only solely focus on the mind and reaching spirituality in that way. But I propose, and I've been influenced by others also, I haven't made this up, I propose that we can also embody spirituality with honoring the body and tapping into that. And so my talk will be about how herbs, plants can do that, and also how we can utilize our breath and movement, right? To tap into the body, to release energy, and to be our best self. So as I said in the chat box, I hope everybody has their favorite beverage. I have my golden chai latte with oat milk. And honestly, I have so many favorite beverages, but I hope you have something to sip on, because taste is one of those senses that we're also going to try to tap in today. And if you didn't make anything, you can just take me on your phone or your laptop and go into your kitchen and make something. I don't mind. All right, so I'm going to start really quickly going through self-care basics. So how do we care for our body, to care for our mind and the whole being? So we all know this probably as healthcare professionals, pharmacists, but I'm going to review it from my understanding and all the cumulative knowledge that I've gathered. And, you know, I think the beauty is also that it can be simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. So keeping things simple can support you in your self-care and can also support your clients is what I found. And just because it's simple doesn't mean it doesn't work. It actually could take some work and mindset shifts to realize that, hey, we can do the simple stuff and we can see results from it. It's just not very valued or reflected back to us in our society, which is why it seems like it won't work maybe. But if you give it an honest shot, I promise simplifying is very rewarding, and you get to have extra time for other things. So I'm inviting you to just enjoy this presentation, feel into all your senses, where you're sitting, orient yourself with your surroundings and your body. And we're just going to quickly do a short talking bit, and then we'll get into the little exercises that I've prepared. So when it comes to nourishing your body, you want to nourish it with the right nutrients, right? We all know that. So really, I'm starting with the basics. You want to have whole foods in the diet. You want to shop the periphery of the grocery store, which means these are the things without food labels. So even though sometimes I know we can even get into orthorexia, reading all the labels, counting all the calories, documenting everything that we're eating, using food scales and things like that. So I propose we don't do that, you know, and of course it could work wonders for some people and it could be a useful tool as well. But also you can't go wrong with just simplifying and making sure you're having the fruit and veggies, you're having the nutrient dense foods, and you're eating the whole food. So likely if it doesn't have a label on it, then it's not processed, which is why I recommend actually checking out the unlabeled section, right? So it means it's produce, it's fresh, it's grown in the soil, which is a whole other topic, the health of our soil and environment. But ideally, you want to make sure that you are buying the best quality food. If you have access to farmers market, for example, or to crop share alliances of some sort, anything that you could do to improve the quality of the food will improve the quality of the nutrients that you're getting. And then when you're cooking the food, I also recommend the least amount of processing, frying, smoking, all of those things could create, as you know, free radicals. But steaming and boiling actually seem to be the best ways to get the most nutrients and keep them intact, and also keep the water content in the food, which is really important. I'm just going to also keep an eye on the chat here. Awesome. I'm glad you're making that, Lisa. Okay, so it's definitely best, in my opinion, to either steam or boil certain foods, vegetables, and then some of them are also very beneficial to eat raw for the live enzyme content. And it's going to depend on each food, what you want to, how you would like to prepare it in each case. Focusing on the veggies, especially the leafy greens. And I recommend cooking those leafy greens because they might have some goitrogens and other things that when eaten raw could become a problem if you're eating a whole lot of them. Okay, so that's about food, and that's just keeping things simple. Now, sleep is another pillar of health that I feel a lot of people neglect, myself included. I'm still working on this. And we hear this number, right? Ideal sleep time, and there's all these research studies around it. maybe it's 8 hours a day. It's more for certain growth spurts and in your lifetime, from being a child, being a baby to becoming an adult. And we recognize, right, a lot of these things for children in particular, that, okay, kids need more sleep, kids need naps and things like that. But we don't realize that we are depriving ourselves from those same benefits that sleep gets to our children, which is the time that our body really gets to rest and restore and rebuild. And this is literally like, if you do nothing else for your health and just focus on getting good quality sleep, you'd be amazed at, maybe how much supplements you can save yourself on, or how much more nutrients and absorption could improve in your health, how much maybe your liver detox improves. So it's really interesting that we have all the research to support all the fancy stuff that we do, and all the, extracts and, all the benefits of this, and, studying placebo-controlled studies for that. But we are not doing the basic stuff, which is what I'm proposing is the pillar and the most important thing. So it doesn't mean that you necessarily will need 8 hours. Some people need more, some people need less. So you would want to really experiment and explore that ideal amount for yourself. How do you feel best? And also, I would say that when you're sleeping, that amount of hours is also important. So keeping to our circadian rhythms, and not just thinking, okay, I'm going to go to sleep at 1 a.m. So I need 8 hours. I'm going to get up at 9 and I'll feel great. That's not necessarily the case. You might want to wind down before 10 p.m. For example, that's how I feel best. I realized that the later I go to sleep, right, the less restful my sleep is. So for me, I've pinpointed, okay, this is a good bedtime for me, right, for my rhythm. So I invite you to also explore and ideally try to go to sleep before midnight. And this gets very difficult with shift work, and I understand all of that. But if you can get some consistency and experiment for yourself, you will be able to notice the results. You'll be able to see how this affects your quality. Some people that have insomnia, or they keep waking up during the night, you might be able to shift things just by shifting the routine around your sleep habits. And I know some people also will choose to say that, oh, I'm a night owl, I'm an early bird. And I was definitely in the night owl camp for a really, really long time. But now, especially, having a child and knowing how important sleep is for the child, I recognize that I have to shift my own habits in order for me to create time for myself. So the only time I can literally carve out for myself is in the morning before the household gets up. And so for me, it's really important to get everybody in bed, including myself, and really build the habit, because it's a matter of building the habit. You can change your preference for night owl or early bird if you just start building those healthy habits and routines. And of course, that starts with winding down, getting off your laptop, your computer, your phone, things like that. Blue light exposure really affects our melatonin production. Okay, so last thing that I will share is movement, right? And maybe this is not the last thing, I'm sorry, but one of the other pillars is movement. And so throughout the day, you want to just make sure that your body is moving, right? Because we're not created to just sit on a desk or in a chair or just stand all day at a counter. That's just not how we evolved, and that's not how our body functions best. So literally the health of your body doesn't just depend on the food and the sleep that I just mentioned were vital, but also it does not work properly if we don't have the blood flow, if we don't have the circulation. And some of our blood flow literally depends not just on our heart pumping the blood, but our body helping the heart receive the blood flow back. And for that, we need to move our extremities. We need to get the blood back up via the vessels. And also this will move our lymph, which will move the detoxification process along, which will improve our immunity and a lot of other things. So everything is so intertwined. I personally have developed a habit of at least consistent movement throughout the day. It doesn't have to be like long stretches of intense exercise, but for myself, I found that I can get a regular routine, a dose of exercise every morning that I mentioned that is the only time for myself really. And so I do just 10 to 15 minutes of HIIT. And even though that doesn't sound like a lot, which is HIIT is high intensity interval training, it may not sound like a lot, but doing it consistently over time builds that habit, builds those muscles. The muscle, not just the physical muscle, but also the brain, right? Muscle, the habit is what I'm talking about. And it just gets you into the routine and into your body and gets everything moving. So for me, it really sets the tone of the day. And then as for bedtime, a good way to wind down and to help with the bedtime routine is doing gentle stretches, yoga. I mean, you can do that really anytime. And even if you have time throughout the day to check in, you can always, stretch. Like Angela was mentioning, you can put your hand on your heart, you can do some breathing. You can do a lot of things if you're just building the habit of creating consciousness around it. And so the breath is so important too, that mind-body connection. And that is a way that is a bridge, like Angela was also mentioning, between the body and the mind and the spirit. So just by connecting with the breath, you're activating a lot of different pathways in your body. And so I recommend exploring mindfulness practices like Tai Chi, Qigong, and meditation to enhance your connection with your own breath. And the breath is also considered the life force. And if you think about it, it is a life force because your breath is what you need to stay alive. It's the number one thing that we need to stay alive. After that comes water and food and other things, but the breath is number one. And then this works really well with techniques for visualization. You can also practice affirmation and mantras for your mind-body connection and to connect to self and to change your own self-belief that we also spoke about today. And then what I love about getting into my body is also embodying things like chanting and singing and dancing. So this is really the feminine way I feel. So lastly, I'll just briefly mention the herbs, and then we'll see if we have time for the exercises. Hopefully we will. So the herbs that I think are most important to mention, and many of you may have heard of these already, but to bring into your mind and body connection, I'd love to introduce some adaptogens. So again, these balance our stress response to situation. And so these are just some visuals because, of course, as an herbalist, I have to show you the visuals. So some of my favorites are ashwagandha, eleuthero, and schisandra berry pictured here. The next class that I support my clients with is nervines. So these adaptogens, right, are taking care of our kind of like long-term hormonal system. And the nervines I think of like as a short-term anxiolytic almost, right? So these help support us in the moment. Adaptogens you have to take over time to see some results. Nervines you can take and immediately feel relief. And the mind and body connection is so prevalent because many of these will act on the mind anxiety, but also on the body anxiety and the digestive system. So some of these are working hand in hand for the parasympathetic system, which will also affect how you are absorbing your food. So chamomile is a perfect example of that. And it is readily accessible in any grocery store. So I really recommend you check that out and invite you to explore these. And then the other two that I want to bring in here are milky oats pictured here. And this is literally the plant that gives us oatmeal. So we use it at the time where it's just seeping this milky latex before it goes to seed. And then this beautiful thing is linden, and this is helpful for sleep as well. And then speaking of sleep, to improve your sleep, you can use more sedating herbs or herbs that just help kind of bring us back down into our body from our brain and help us relax more, help us tap into the relaxation. So I would recommend trying out something like valerian root, passion flower, or California poppy. And then lastly, even though we may not think overtly about the nervous system and self-care, what I mentioned that we need whole foods and nutrients, there are plants to support that as well. So just having nutrient dense quality foods and herbs in the diet will support your nervous system and support the mind body. So these will give you the vitamins and minerals. My favorites are nettle, pictured here. Don't touch it with your bare hands because it stings. But this is a great protein rich plant. And then alfalfa as well. It's in the bean family. It's protein rich. And then moringa, pictured here, is called the tree of life in some areas. And although it's not native to here, it's a beautiful super plant, superfood, and also really high in proteins. How can you incorporate the herbs? And this brings us back to the embodying. How do you bring the herbs into your life and into your body? You can do it internally with how we traditionally would drink a tea. Some methods of preparation will differ, depends on what part of the plant we're using. We can also use tinctures and flower essences. And flower essences are a huge topic that could really tap into our emotions and helping us with profound shifts. I'm not going to get into today, but you can look it up. It's a really beautiful concept. But also topically is something we could do. So literally touching our bodies, putting the herbs on our bodies, taking baths or doing rinses if you have a shower, really using whatever you have available to you and creating a ritual out of it is something that I find really, really powerful. So you don't even have to ingest it. You could just be with the plants. And literally, you don't even have to bathe in it either. You can walk out into nature and connect with plants that way too, and smell them and notice them. And you can lather your body in oils and salves and butters with herbs. You can inhale them as you're lathering. You can just take in those scents and essential oils that they have. And you can also use burning plants. So whether it's an herbal smoke, which is way better and sometimes even beneficial for the lungs than other things you may be thinking about smoking. Incense, you can just create a really nice presence with incense or burning plants around your area, but of course, be very careful about that, speaking from personal experience. All right, so I'm not sure, we only have about 5 minutes left to do the exercises. And since we already did breath work with Angela, perhaps I'll let you choose if you can type in the chat if you would like to do a tea tasting or a movement embodiment exercise.
You know what I was going to say, Marina? Because I want to make sure that we have enough time for questions and everything, and I don't want to like cut you off. What if, we could figure something out, but maybe if you like record that and then we can put it in the bundle, like that could be something that we do as well, just because like I don't want to at 11:58 have to be like, oh, sorry, we're in the middle of this, so does that sound okay to you?
Yeah, that's fine. So for everybody in the meeting, if you want to, I propose either doing a quick tea tasting where I just guide you through that, or a quick like embodiment exercise, but I think the tea tasting will be quicker.
Yeah, I would put that in the chat. Let's just kind of wrap up your talk so that we can be on time, and then maybe like put in the chat what you'd rather see from her. Tea tasting. Okay, cool. So Marina, because I feel like I didn't get to talk to you at all. So what would you leave people with? Like, what are some of the takeaways? And thank you for that presentation. That was awesome. What are some of the takeaways that you'd like to share with people? Like 2 or 3 things.
Yeah. So what I want to leave you with is that the physical health of our body is a reflection of our inner landscape and vice versa. So we can nourish ourselves with whole foods, herbs, sleep, and good thoughts, as I've presented here, and also connect with our body through breath, movement, and tapping into the five senses. And as I said, that's available to anyone. We are physical beings, we're spiritual beings in physical form. So we can celebrate that physicality and not try to escape it so much. We can actually honor the spiritual through the physical, which is, I think, a big key in my message that I've been formulating this whole time. And that has been really helpful to me on my self-healing journey. And this is exactly what I celebrate the herbs with as well, because they're part of our physical world, they're part of our environment, and we can turn to them. And they've been around way longer than we have, and they can teach us lots of things.
Beautiful. I love it. You describe health with such beautiful language, very inspiring messaging. Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you need anything herbal, go to Marina. Someone just Lisa had sent me the concoction for the tea, so maybe we'll put that in our list of resources as well. So we're going to transition over to the panel discussion, just so we have enough time to to give space for everybody to eat lunch, and then we'll come back. So Rachel, are you still there? I can't find you because there's too many pages. Rachel.
I'm here.
Oh, there she is. Okay. So if you can go ahead and start the panel discussion, and I'm going to get some coffee and eat some food. So I'll be back.
Okay, I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat as well. Marina, I'm going to start with you since you're here right now for sure. And I can see the chat a little bit. They were wondering if you could mention the adaptogens again. I know ashwagandha was one. What were the other two you mentioned?
So the other two I mentioned here, and there's so many, are Eleuthero and Schisandra berry. So Eleuthero is a little related to the ginseng family, even though it's not the same family. It's kind of like a milder version of that. And I always that's another big part of my message that I didn't mention, is that I start with gentle. My approach is starting with gentle. And so same thing with the plants. I'll start with gentle plants first. I will start with gentle ways to support you, because I've just experienced so many times that intense, heroic medicine is not for everyone, and it's not appropriate for every situation. So that's not what I like to start with. And also that's not what I do. So if somebody needs that, they will need to go to the hospital or get emergency care.
Okay, there's a couple more in the chat. Recommendations for those of us who are wanting to expand our green thumbs. Are there any houseplants or indoor herbs that you would recommend starting with, especially for people like me who kill everything?
Yeah, it's, honestly, such a journey. It depends on, where you live, how much sun there is, and watering. So it could be really simple, like anything, but also could get quite, nuanced. So the simple thing is you need the right amount of water that the plant likes. So that could just be a matter of researching, okay, how much does this plant like? And then also making sure that it dries out completely between waterings and doesn't get too boggy and wet nor too dry. So it's a balance, but it's going to depend on what type of soil you have and what type of plant you have. And secondly, the amount of sunlight is really important. So you want to know, does the plant like shade? Does the plant like sun? Just like people, they have personalities. So looking that up beforehand, before investing in getting a new house plant is really important. Or if you get it, just to make sure to put it in the right place, put it in the right soil with the right nutrients, and then watering it appropriately. I personally find aloe is really easy to grow. You can see behind me, I just recently repotted it because it was like getting way out of hand. And repotting it is important too. So when it gets too big for the container, it no longer can fit and can no longer grows. So you're kind of dwarfing it. And that's kind of like people too. We want to get to the next level. We want to go to a bigger pot, to the bigger sandbox to play. So plants are like that as well.
Okay, and one more question, I believe, for you, unless I'm missing them. There's a lot of stuff coming in right now. Someone is asking about, for quitting smoking, thoughts on burning and inhaling tea tree?
Yes. So tea tree, I have not worked with it in terms of inhalation, maybe just the tea tree oil, if that's what you mean, the essential oil. So inhaling that as aromatherapy or using it in topical products is mostly what we do for antifungal, antimicrobial uses, acne, things like that, candida. So in terms of inhaling it, it might have some antimicrobial effects in the respiratory tract. But to quit smoking, I have a few plants that I work with. So a really good lung herb combination is mullein and lobelia. But lobelia, you have to be very careful on the dosing. It's a very low dose plant. And it's a partial nicotine receptor agonist, which is why it's helpful for quitting smoking. So you can gradually reduce it. And mullein is a great respiratory health and lung herb to support anti-inflammatory function, to support the right amount of moisture, that we do want some lubrication in the lungs. We do want some decongestion happening too in the lungs. So these two herbs together are my go-tos.
Great, thank you. I think that's all I have in the chat for you. Unless I missed one, and I do apologize if I do. There's a lot coming in right now between direct them up, but thank you so much. Thank you.